Hello and welcome to another night shift. My name is Yazil, and today we're gonna see if we can get a second player into our scene. So I started the scene, and before that I made a game client. Let's stop that. And you go under build and run, but make sure first that you got under build settings the login, the start, and the build char scene into it, and then say build and run. Since it needs a while, I did that beforehand. So let me log in again and start the client. So you can see here I starting a client, and we go for 3.3 and go into login. Sometimes this should be happen. There it is. So what you notice that even if both are logged in, the character is not visible. But trust me, he is in the scene here. So let's look on our start, and we see here a player, which are we here, and a player 2, and he's just not on the position. So let's reposition him, whatever. I think that's a good number. There he is on the side, so maybe there. So we see the players in the game where the other player can see it, and that's the stuff we want to do today. As you can see, here it has no animator on it, but we will change that. So let's stop that. Going to the client and stop that also. It slows down my machine since I'm recording. So for that, we got 2 new C# scripts. One is the player others and the player others manager. You could do that all in player and player manager, but I think it's more visible if you have that in different scripts. And therefore I made 2 new scripts. So first of all, let's start with the yconst, as we always do. If we're gonna change something, I edited or made a new const start t for the tag, and start subject or the start s for join game and spawn game. One is to inform everybody that I joined the game, and one is for we tell the other guys to spawn a client for us. So next we need to know when our UMA is ready. So we need to go to the player plugin and make a new delegate here, and a new event. And I called it my UMA ready event handler, and my UMA ready event handler on my UMA ready is the order to call it. So we're gonna have these function here, my player, and it builds the player, and we just tell the world that we are ready. And for that, we start up the on my UMA ready function. So everybody who has this event in it or is added to the event gets the notice. So did we change something in player manager? I don't think so. No. The next is we go to the player other manager, and in that we got the player my player, and in the start function we cache the my player, and we do that with the game object .find player .component player. So we know who is our player Then we gone on data detail for the input receive, and we also on player disconnect. So if somebody is disconnected from the server, we get a message and we can react on that. And also we want from the player my UMA ready. That's the function we or the event we just added. So if we are called via this event, we open the function send I'm new, and in the opposite to do what we did before was we sent a server, made a plug, sent information to the server has a plugin, the plugin siege something and sends a message back. We this time use internal server function. So we don't send stuff direct to the server, we send stuff to others. That means we send a message to the server and the server automatically sends it to everybody else, except me, of course. So when we are ready, when we got the message that our player is ready, we let the world know that we are new. And for that, we check if we are connected, and we tell the world send message to others. We send the tag start, and we send the subject join, and we just message anything here. It really doesn't matter because we don't check for it. As next, we using a dark web writer and we make our player. So we collect the data we want to send to everybody else, which is in this case the user ID, the player name, the player gender, the player race, and of course the UMA receipt. And then we're going to darkweb send message to others, and we send the subject the tag start tag and the subject spawn, and we send the data writer we just built here. So then we create a receiver. So when we get messages in, we check for the start tag and we check for the subject join game, which is this here and above. If we get the join game, we just tell everybody who gets the message that he has to spawn a player for us. So basically it's just you log in with player A, and player A sends the message to player B that he is joined, and player B sends back his UMA or his character. And that we do in here, we just create a writer also and just create the stuff we want to send, which is my player user ID and my player name, my player gender, race, and we send that to the spawn message. So we told everybody that we are logged in and we send them our stuff. And while we send everybody we joined, everybody else sends us her or their player. And next is the subject spawn. If we get the subject spawn, which is these, we create a player, and for that we read out of the dark web reader the int, the ID, the player name, the gender, the race, and the UMA data. And then we told, or we use another function I created. This is the build others, and it's it wants the sender ID. And why now the sender ID? Where it comes from? It's over here. We used here in the function the API not on data. We use on data detailed, and detailed is something new we didn't have before. It tells us who sent it. So we got in the receiver the sender ID. And so since we got the sender ID, we sent that to our function, the ID, the player name, player gender, and so on. Also, since we got the UMA data in compress, we decompress the UMA data. And yeah, that's there, there. Okay, then we just use the function build others, and therefore we create a game object, and we call the game object player minus and the sender ID. The sender ID means basically the network ID the player has. In our example we had before, I was the second one logged in, so I got the sender ID 2, so the player should be named player minus 2. And then we create the player others, which is the other player script I made, and add that to the game object. And for that, I use the function in player object make player. I send the sender ID, and UMA data. And for the last, we want to make sure if we get a player disconnected message from the server, we get an ID of that. This is the sender ID. So we search in for a game object which is called player minus ID. And if we got that, we just destroy the object in 0.1 second. So since we got that, we need to work on the player object and the player others, and the player others is basically the player script. So we go for player others. It's basically really the same. It has the animation controller. It has no public vars, but it has a couple privates. User, player, gender ID. If we go back there, you see the same here. Private variables and getters and setters. So in player others, it's basically the same. As I told before, you can do that in one script. You have to look always if my sender ID or my network ID is the same than we receive and stuff like that. So I just think it's more or easier to just separate them. Okay, after we got the variables here, we go for the getters and setters. And then we cache a couple things. The UMA generator and the UMA context. The UMA context we don't need in the moment, but we will need in the future. And in the start function, we have got nothing in the moment. In application quit also, nothing in the moment. But this is the function we called. It's the make player. Sorry about that. And since we got all the stuff here, we just use it to fill our variables about the player. So user ID, player name, player gender, player race, sender ID is the network ID. And so that's something new I just noticed. We don't have the, or we have that. Network ID, oh, we have that in player also, so it's no different. And then if we finished with setting the variables, we just call make UMA, and we call it with the UMA we got here. Oh, I changed something. In the make UMA, it's really the same than we used before. We're looking for our player and transform this to the parent. We got the add component UMA dynamic avatar. We initialize that. We go in for UMA data, and we go in for UMA generator. We go in to going the UMA data to the UMA generator. We go into the receive and set the slot list to 40. We set the both DNA, which is humanoid, and DNA tutorial, and we add the DNA to the receipt. After that, we're going to OMA text receipt, and it's a scriptable object, create instance UMA text receipt, and we set the bytes out of the UMA receipt we got here over the function. And after we set the bytes, we load the receipt into our dynamic avatar, and then we destroy the receipt and we set the UMA dynamic avatar to update new arrays. That's all. So since we had no animation, we uncomment that. So the UMA dynamic animation controller is set to anim controller. And for that to work, we need to cast that in the start function over here. And we're going to underscore anim controller is equal to game object dot find player dot get component, and the component we search is player, and from that we need the underscore anim controller. So that makes sure we got an animation controller down here, so the spawn player shouldn't be any longer in T position. Good. Save that and start. So while I started the first time, I noticed an error. We assigned the animator controller here at the start position, and that was a point in startup the whole thing where the player wasn't ready. So of course we have to copy that, cut that out, and we have to do that in our make player. So we are sure now the player is ready and the animation controller is also there. So that's the little arrow. Just save that and close and open the Unity project, start that, and going for the player 2 and we log in. We see he is only here, but as we know, we have to reposition him. It's something like that, if I remember that right. 40th, there he is. And also he's animated now. So we got both players in one scene, both are animated, so the animation controller is working. Of course we can't move them, and also we don't have control to it. But that's the first thing for today. The next thing is I want to leave you with a little work for you to do while I'm doing some more stuff for you. So let's stop that and stop that and going a sec for our workbench, which is over here. And we connect there. As you all know, we got a table account and a table player, and if we go to the table player, we got stuff we didn't use in the moment. It's the resistant, the health and mana, and the stats itself. And I want you to make a table race. And in the race, you have the ID and the name, which is in Warshar, and the rest is int for everything. So just right click, create new table, and fill out the stuff. So let me quick create a table. You got that here the table name and the other columns. For example, ID, it's an int, it's an unique, and here is the name. Oops, I call it name, it's in varchar, and also so on. Intelligence, intelligence, which is int, and so on. Don't forget to apply after that, and that's all. For your information, I'm working on a tool which is called tbMaster from my side, and I'm working to do that on Unity Direct. I think it will be the special for this month for the player who pledged to me on Patreon. So stay tuned for that. When you have these table, we go into our login player plugin, and let's make that bigger. And of our function over here in Save Player, we want to make sure that the default values we defined in the table race will be stored at our player information. So we make a string which is race gender. It's race and the gender. We got a database row. We go for database execute query and select star from table race where name is equal to name, and the name is query, which is the race gender. So after that, we got in the row one line, which is we define here. We get one line back, and we only do that if we have exact one line. And for that, we got an insert here with the stuff we already got through the connection from our Unity project, and we just go and put in the rest of the stuff in here. And so your job for the waiting until the next video is to send these stuff also to our Unity player. You should be able to do that, which is not too complicated. One hint here. Here's the hint. Now here's the hint. And to show you how it looks, we go in our workbench again and go for our table player and make and select row. Here are a couple I made over the time, and you see, if you go here, you see here's one player who has the whole stuff in it. So I hope you had fun. If you had, I would be more than happy to have a like from you. If you want to follow the series, please subscribe. I'm still looking for the first 100. And if you want to support me, go to my Patreon page, pledge for a few bucks, and you get all the source code and, of course, the specials of the month. Thank you and happy night shift.